The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation is now warning that Lake Powell may reach dangerously low levels, and the dam could even stop producing power just within the next 18 months.
March 26, 1996. Inside Glen Canyon Dam's control room, engineers prepared to do something never attempted for ecological purposes: unleash the river. For decades, the dam had controlled the Colorado with mechanical precision. Today, they would open the bypass tubes and release 45,000 cubic feet per second, a controlled flood designed to rebuild eroded beaches and restore vanishing sandbars. Scientist David Wegner, leading the research team, had fought for years to make this happen. Monitoring equipment lined the canyon: sediment gauges, flow meters, cameras. Decades of theory was about to meet reality. 7 days later, the results were mixed but hopeful. New sandbars formed. Backwater habitats for endangered fish appeared. The experiment proved artificial floods could partially mimic natural processes. But it also revealed an uncomfortable truth: decades of damage couldn't be undone in a week. Since 1963, the Colorado has lost its essential character. A natural river runs thick with silt, warm from desert sun. Water released from the dam's depths is clear, cold, and sterile. Hydrologists call this hungry water. Carrying no sediment, it compensates by stripping sand from the banks, eroding beaches that took centuries to form. The consequences cascaded. Beaches vanished. Native fish, humpback chub, razorback sucker, Colorado pike minnow, found themselves exposed to predators in clear water, their spawning disrupted by cold temperatures. Invasive trout hunted them toward extinction. The river was becoming a sterile canal. The 1996 flood was a desperate attempt to prove intervention was still possible. But the engineers knew a secret. 13 years earlier, this dam had nearly failed. Winter 1983. Record snowpack, 200% of normal, buried the Rockies. A sudden spring heat wave turned it into a weapon. Lake Powell rose toward the dam's crest. Overtopping meant uncontrolled erosion, potential failure, a wall of water racing toward every community downstream. Operators opened the emergency spillways, tunnels carved through sandstone. It almost ended in disaster. Inside the tunnels, water moving at 120 miles per hour created cavitation, vacuum bubbles that collapsed with explosive force. They shattered concrete, punched through rebar, and began consuming the sandstone itself. Workers felt the dam vibrating. The spillway water ran red with pulverized rock. Engineers made a desperate call: bolt plywood flashboards to the spillway gates, raising the dam's height by 8 feet. Workers attached lumber to a structure holding back millions of acre-feet. It worked. Barely. Inspections revealed holes 40 feet deep carved into bedrock. Repairs took years. Internal assessments remain sobering. In a future megaflood, there's no guarantee the patched system holds. Now, ironically, the dam faces the opposite threat. The Southwest is gripped by megadrought, the driest 23-year period in 1,200 years. Lake Powell has lost over 70% capacity since 2000. The Bureau of Reclamation monitors critical thresholds. At elevation 3,490 feet, minimum power pool, turbines stop generating. At 3,370 feet, dead pool, water can't reach the outlets. The river stops entirely. Glen Canyon powers 5.8 million customers across 7 states. Hospitals, military bases, water treatment plants depend on it. More critically, the dam anchors the Colorado River Compact, the 1922 agreement dividing water between upper and lower basin states. If Glen Canyon stops flowing, Western water law begins collapsing. Phoenix, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, built on assumptions the river would always deliver. Climate models suggest 20 to 35% flow reduction by mid-century. The math no longer works. But as water retreats, it's revealing something unexpected. Before the dam, Glen Canyon rivaled the Grand Canyon in beauty. Explorer John Wesley Powell called it a land of beauty and glory. Over 80 side canyons, ancient rock art, natural bridges. Cathedral in the Desert, a natural amphitheater with a waterfall, was considered one of Earth's most beautiful places. In 1963, all of it drowned. Environmentalist David Brower, who initially accepted the dam as compromise, later called it the greatest sin I ever committed. Now climate is accomplishing what politics couldn't. Cathedral in the Desert has risen from the depths. Kayakers explore slot canyons unseen for 60 years. But resurrection brings complications. Exposed lake beds hold decades of sediment, potentially contaminated by upstream mining and agricultural runoff. As it dries, wind carries particles into the air. Monitoring stations are assessing health risks. More hopefully, receding waters expose archaeological sites never properly surveyed. Researchers are documenting petroglyphs and dwelling sites underwater for 6 decades. The clock is ticking. If water rises again, these sites vanish once more. The Colorado faces a fundamental question. What happens next? The Bureau of Reclamation, 7 states, tribal nations, Mexico, and environmental groups are negotiating the river's future. Current guidelines expire in 2026. Some advocate demolishing Glen Canyon Dam, draining Lake Powell, reducing 600,000 acre-feet of annual evaporation loss, restoring the canyon. Opponents argue it would destabilize an already fragile system. Others focus on demand reduction, mandatory conservation, agricultural fallowing, desalination. Meanwhile, high-flow experiments continue. Scientists have learned smaller, frequent floods may work better than rare, large ones. Timing with tributary floods moves more sediment. The canyon retains some capacity to heal, but they've also learned the limits. The dam cannot replicate a wild river. Some species may never recover. Some beaches may never return. The Colorado faces an existential reckoning mirroring the American West's broader challenge. A civilization built on optimistic assumptions about water must now adapt. The river shaped this land. Now we decide whether to let it continue, or whether our choices write its final chapter. What do you think should happen to Glen Canyon Dam? Tell me in the comments.